What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got for you 7 malicious compliance stories. So sit back, relax. This is an extended episode. Let's get into the first. All modifications must be restored to the original. My family and I moved into a house in 2008. 5 bedrooms, 3,200 square feet, $1,600 a month. It was a decent price in 2008, and the rent stayed the same for many years. Since I'm reasonably handy, I would fix things myself rather than bother an old man. I lived there so long that I also made quite a few upgrades. In 2024, the owner passed away and his son inherited the property. A week later, he gave notice of intent to inspect the property. During that inspection, he kept trying to open drawers and look through my belongings, which isn't legally allowed, and was rude when I stopped him. As he left, he handed me a notice that my rent was increasing to $4,000 monthly, about $1,000 over market value. I would have paid higher rent if it had been reasonable, but I wasn't paying that much. My month-to-month lease was worded to require 3 months' notice to raise the rent. I pointed out this fact, then gave him notice that I'd be moving out at the end of those 3 months. A few days later, I was served with an eviction notice. The month-to-month lease also required 3 months' notice to evict me without cause. So he tried evicting me with cause. He claimed that I'd made unauthorized modifications to the house and cited the back door with a dog door installed. I still had the original door in the garage and the previous owner's permission, so it was neither unauthorized nor a modification. Regardless, the judge decided I needed to move out within 30 days or he would grant the eviction. Additionally, he explicitly ordered that all modifications be restored to the original. This is where the malicious compliance comes in, and I'm sure you already saw this coming. All the smart house additions I made were removed. The tool shed in the yard was removed. The pond was filled in. Closet organizers were torn out. Garage organizers were removed. The updated appliances were replaced with basic models. Every update I made was removed, and then I moved out. He sued me for removing everything. His lawyer cited a law that says any changes to the property become part of the property and it's illegal to remove them when vacating the property. However, my lawyer pointed out the order from the previous judge stating, quote, all modifications must be restored to the original. I provided receipts for all the things I had removed, proving that I had added them and was required to remove them. I won the case and he had to pay my legal fees. A few months later, I got a call from his sister. Some of my mail had not been forwarded, and she wanted to ensure I got it. We had a short conversation about the entire ordeal. She told me the house was actually inherited by 4 siblings. Her brother had lied to everyone. First, he'd raised the rent, knowing I would move out. He already had a deal to sell the house to one of those big rental companies. He told his siblings the house had negative equity, and nobody would get anything from the sale. In reality, the house was paid off and worth about $700,000. They'd made an offer on the house, which included all the stuff I later removed. He couldn't afford to replace everything, so they took him to court over the sale. Since all 4 siblings were listed as owners, all were named in the lawsuit, which is how they learned the truth. In the end, the house sold for $550,000. In exchange for not pressing fraud charges against him, his 3 siblings split the proceeds, and he got nothing. Okay, there we go. Phenomenal story. First of all, before I give my thoughts on it, OP has answered some common questions from Reddit. Starting with this. How did everything happen so fast after the landlord died? OP says, I guess my wording wasn't clear. I don't actually know when he died. I only talk to the guy once or twice a year. This all started about a week after I was notified of his death in February of 2024. I moved out in early June. We went to court over the removals in September, and I spoke with his sister in December. Everything I posted happened over the span of nearly a year. Next question. Why did OP rent for 17 years instead of buying a house? Well, I moved into the house during my divorce in 2008. Buying a house during a divorce isn't easy. I chose this house because it was large enough for me and 3 kids and close to their schools. By the time they moved out, I was set in my ways. I planned to buy another place at some point, but I was in no rush. Next question, this is interesting. How did his siblings not know what he was up to? I don't know. Everything involving me was my first-hand experience. Everything that happened after that was second-hand information I got from his sister. I can't confirm what she told me, I can only share what she said. Next question. Why did I do so many upgrades on a rental? I wasn't tearing out walls or replacing floors. Everything I did was reversible and done to make my life easier. Also, the landlord was retired, never raised the rent, and always gave permission. Even though I was renting, it was my home. Next question. Why did the judge only give me 30 days to move out? Well, the eviction process didn't happen overnight. I thought this was obvious, but some people seemed confused. From the point that I gave him 3 months notice to seeing a judge, nearly 2 months had passed. There's a time process that has to be followed. Interesting question now. How did I remove everything so quickly? Well, actually, none of the stuff was that difficult to remove. The pond wasn't a small lake. It was a small 300-gallon hole in the backyard with a few goldfish and plants. It took us about 3 hours to drain and fill it in. The shed was sold to someone who took it away on a flatbed. Organizers were modular. Appliances are similar to replace. The most time-consuming was replacing all the smart plugs with standard outlets and smart bulbs with regular bulbs. How are we supposed to believe that you had all those receipts? Yeah, that is a fair question, because I suppose, as you said, it's very important that you did have the receipts, but for all those years you kept all the receipts? I suppose you must be very organized. Well, I've been self-employed for 29 years. I keep every receipt because Uncle Sam doesn't mess around when it comes time for an audit. Most receipts come to my email, but I also have a portable receipt scanner for everything else. That's very organized, I've got to say. I mean, I'm self-employed. I've not kept all my receipts. Yes, I have the emailed ones, I suppose, if I was really forced to find them, but according to my dad, I should be more organized. But anyway, last question. How would anyone believe the house had negative equity? Well, again, I can't speak for them, but I can share a personal anecdote. My mum died in 2022. While settling her estate, we discovered that she had a reverse mortgage. Essentially, a company loaned her money with no mortgage payments. In return, they had to be paid back if she died or tried to sell the house. The house wasn't worth enough to pay them off, so we let them take it. Reverse mortgages are prevalent and often predatory. I don't know if he told them this, but it's not far-fetched to believe a house has negative equity. Exactly, yeah, it doesn't even have to be that specific thing, but houses with negative equity, that can't be that uncommon. And I suppose if your brother was the one that said, you know what, look, don't worry about this, I'll take care of it and I'll let you know what's going on with it, you probably would just trust what he said about it. Well, maybe not after hearing that he was lying the whole time. Okay, there we go. That clears a few things up, but brilliant start to the episode. I suppose the only real gripe I have with the conclusion of this one is that the brother didn't get any jail time. I mean, that would have been the icing on the cake, but at least he's not getting any of that money. And by the way, that's a lot of money. What is that? 550K. He would have got, well, all of it, I suppose, if he had his way, or 700,000 of it. In the end, all his siblings are getting, what, 170K roughly? Is that about right? 180K? 183K? Is that right? Yes. 183. And he's getting none. So he's $183,000 down for being a fraud. Good stuff. And well done to you, OP, as well, for dealing with this. Because, yeah, it sounds tough. And that 30 days to move out eviction note that you had to sort of go by and stand by because of the judge giving you that. I mean, that is awful. So I hope you're all right, but well done to you. Now for our next malicious compliance story. You think I'm fudging my hours? You're right. Here's my real hours. I started working for a non-profit in 2019 after being a volunteer member since 2000. It was supposed to be temporary for 3 months or so, but the non-profit dragged their feet hiring a permanent replacement. I'm fairly well off. Not filthy rich, but debt-free and comfortable, and didn't need the money. So I never billed for my hours after working 15 months full-time. It was supposed to be $25 per hour, Canadian currency, but I was willing to work for free if they just found a replacement in a reasonable time. They were pressuring me for an invoice, so I finally invoiced them for 40 hours a week for 15 months, and it was about a high $60,000. They were livid for a variety of reasons that I didn't understand. They accused me of lying about my hours because I was a new father and my wife had gone back to work after maternity leave, and there's no way that I could have worked that much. When I told them I had my son in daycare instead of staying at home with him, they sarcastically said, "Now you know what it's like to work an actual job like the rest of us." They were mad that I wasn't volunteering my time anymore like I used to, but I insisted I was, and that my build time was only for the TV bingo fundraiser and not for any other non-profit activities. They didn't believe me. I tried to tell them my hours were actually more than I billed for, and my hourly rate is greatly reduced compared to what I normally charge for all the work I was doing. IT, e-commerce, web design, marketing, HR operations, bookkeeping, TV production, etc. But they said they didn't care about the rate reduction. They insisted that I charge my normal rates for my actual hours and then deduct 10 hours a week for volunteering, which is about 10 times more hours than any of them volunteer for. Okay, bet. So I started charging them $40 to $125 per hour depending on the task. I recorded all my tasks and hours in great detail. I charged for any time I spent doing what was normally volunteer work for the non-profit. Then I finally deducted 10 hours a week. I was billing an average of 50 hours a week after the volunteer hours were deducted. I also took the opportunity to start hiring more people under me on their dime so I could work way less than I did in the first 15 months, but still get paid the same, if not more. They couldn't say anything because it was exactly what they asked for. I was billing $1,000 per week before malicious compliance, and then about $3,000 after, which I started trimming back down closer to $1,000 a week after cutting my own hours. These guys kept doubling down and accusing me of incompetence and fraud over the next year and a half that I continued working, but I didn't care anymore. They turned my passion into a terrible job that I didn't need, so I stayed until all my amazing employees were hopefully set up for success, and then I wrote that non-profit out of my life for good. I didn't feel any guilt over being paid for my time with them because I had raised more money for them in 30 months, $30 million gross, about 20 million net, than they had raised in 100 years before then. Wow, sounds like you were very good at your job. Sorry, you're volunteering. I think it's very telling when somebody is working at a place, volunteering, whatever, but they're clearly not that concerned with money or hours, etc. That, like, they're not in this for the money. I mean, they were a volunteer before, then they sort of got a temporary job. Like, I think it's probably best to sort of let them be, especially when they're doing so well like they are. Also, I mean, just something that immediately springs to my mind is if somebody is making a non-profit that much money, then the non-profit should probably be paying them a good amount anyway, even if it isn't like, you know, it's a charity, you're not going to be getting millions and millions, but surely it's like not worth being pedantic about this sort of thing. It's just confusing, right? So they started by pressuring you for an invoice, OP, despite the fact that you didn't really care that much. Then once you gave them that invoice, they were like, no, you're lying. It's just strange. Like, what were they actually trying to achieve? Maybe they were told that, no, come on, full-time employee, we have to pay you, whatever. But it's just got a bit weird. I don't understand it. OP's actually said in the comments down below, the non-profit world is especially entitled. Interesting. It can get rather toxic. I mean, how? I mean, look, it's a shame. Like, you are giving them so much value. Like, my mum works for a charity and she is trying to work out how to get more money in. Like, fundraising is extremely hard, especially in this day and age. But for you to be doing that much and then still to be being like, oh, you're overcharging us in terms of your hours, or you're lying about hours, etc. It's weird. Like, you're so good at your job, clearly. I don't know why these people are sucking the fun out of something that you're so good at and, well, at least you used to really enjoy. Now for our next post. I brought the company to a standstill to make a point. I worked in the engineering department of a smaller manufacturing company, around 70 to 80 employees. My responsibility, among other things, was to handle any design changes, edit part and assembly drawings, bills of materials, etc. Previously, this was all handled by putting together a packet of actual paper documents that had to be shuffled from engineering to manufacturing. Sometimes ping-ponging back and forth if we were doing something complicated that required input from various people within those departments. Eventually, the company started to implement a software-driven procedure that was supposed to eliminate the stacks of paper that would sometimes get lost on someone's desk. The problem was that our bare-bones staff didn't really have time to learn all of the ins and outs of the software and refine the process to be truly efficient. Basically, it was left so that if an item was entered into an engineering change order, it was locked down so that no one could build one, but also a customer couldn't even order one, or any machine that this item happened to be a component of until the change process was completed. And sometimes this could take weeks. I tried explaining several times that if we ever had to work on some item that is used in several of our products, this would bring everything to a screeching halt. My manager at the time understood this, but could never get all of the people who needed to work on the software procedure to sit down and finalize everything. One day, I was tasked with changing the design of a hardware component that was used in every machine we built. I told my manager that as soon as I started the process, no one in sales would be able to enter an order for any customers until the process would be completed. He shrugged and said, "Do it," knowing that I was right. Within 30 minutes of getting started, a salesman came to my desk asking why he couldn't enter an order. I explained what was happening. He left, and soon after, the VP of the company was at my desk asking what needed to be done. So I told him he needed to corral everyone needed to hash out how the software was supposed to work properly instead of the half-assed just lock everything down deal they left off with. He immediately called in whoever was on that list. It took a few days, as I recall, and the component in question was expedited to be approved within the week. To this day, I use this story in interviews whenever I'm asked one of those questions like, give me an instance where you had to solve a major problem in the workplace. I mean, that is the definition of a major problem in the workplace that you solve, so pretty good story to use. I reckon your manager during this whole ordeal was also on the malicious compliance train. Like when he shrugged and said, "Do it," knowing that you were in the right, that just shows he knows that you know what's going on and you're both sort of like, yeah, this is a terrible idea, but we're getting told to do it by a higher up, so let's just do it. And then we'll maybe get the "I told you so" moment in the aftermath. It feels like one of those stupid things where if somebody had just listened, this would never have happened. This obviously was always going to be a bad idea anyway. I mean, how can you not take orders on every single little product that a particular piece or whatever is involving when you have to change it in a certain way or whatever? Like, it's just ridiculous. Interestingly, OP's actually said in the comments down below that his manager here was one of the few he really liked. He stuck up for his guys, but it was always like jousting windmills for him with upper management. There you go. Upper management's the problem here. It's not the talented people like you that know what they're doing. Now for our next story. If your pay raise isn't enough, quit. Okay then. I got a job as a security guard after leaving the army because I wasn't qualified to do much else, and I hadn't decided if I was going to college yet or not. The company refused to pay very much, so they had high turnover. Because of that turnover, they had small raises built in at 90 days, 6 months, and a year as an incentive to stay on. By the way, this took place around 1992. I needed a job, and until I had my trash together, this would do. So I showed up and I worked. My 1-year anniversary rolls around, and I don't see my 50 cents an hour raise in my paycheck, but something more like 35 cents. So I called the boss. My 3 and 6 month raises had been delivered with no issues, so I was surprised my 1-year anniversary hadn't shown up. Supposedly, they wanted to give all employees a raise, so they did. And yes, I got a small raise, along with all the other guards, a few hundred of us. It was something like 35 cents an hour for each of us. Okay, fine, but what about my promised 50 cents an hour? As far as I was concerned, this 35 cents an hour was something you initiated after promising me more, so this is bonus. When I called the manager, I was told I wasn't going to get a raise for my 1-year raise because you just got a raise. No one gets 2 raises at once. If your pay raise isn't enough, then quit. In other words, they were trying to claim a 35 cent an hour raise for every employee somehow was overriding the fact that I was owed an additional 50 cents an hour longevity raise. I'm sure there were others caught up like that. Fine, they want to give me 35 cents an hour of a raise and tell me that that's equal to the 85 cents an hour. I'll find something better. I spent the next week calling in sick and showing up late while job hunting. I called the office at the end of my last day and I told them I was done and they could find someone else, giving them no notice at all. Panic mode ensued. Everyone else was at 40 hours for the week and they hated paying overtime. One of the salaried managers had to cover for me. They told me to quit, so I did. I'm a teacher now, near retirement. My raises are still trash, but at least I can barely live off of it and I have a trashy union for now, which is more than I had then. A few more cents an hour and they could have kept me as a wage slave. Crazy that I'd even consider it now, looking back on it. At least I enjoy my job today, as crazy as the kids are. I've seen this type of story time and time again. Surely, and I've said this so many times now, surely it is worth just paying your employees a tiny bit more money. Like 50 cents per hour more. It's not that much in the grand scheme of things, is it really? I'm not going to do the maths, because I don't need to. It really isn't that much. A few dollars extra a day to then not have to go through the entire process of losing somebody that clearly is good at their job, like you've kept it for a year and there's no sign of them saying, oh, you're not doing it well, to find somebody else in an industry and in your company where there's so much turnover. How is that worth it? Like, surely just like the people that are good at their job, pay them a bit more. That's sort of what promotions are, I suppose. Give them more responsibility, keep them on, like show them that they are worth it to your company. But no, if you're doing this sort of stuff, I'm sorry, you don't deserve to keep people like OB. Now for our next malicious compliance. Use all your PTO before December 31st or lose it. All right, don't mind if I do, even if the project burns. This happened a couple of years ago at my old job. A pretty demanding corporate gig where we were always juggling tight deadlines, constant emails, and way too many meetings that could have been Slack messages. Around early November, HR sent out one of those all-staff emails. Sorry, I have to interrupt myself there. There's actually nothing I hate more than meetings that could have just been a message. It's so annoying, or just even an email. Like the amount of times that I respond to an email where someone has said, can we just jump on a quick call? And I'm like, yeah, we can do, but you could also just email me a few points, like, a couple of paragraphs, very quickly, and I can look at them in my own time and respond, and then neither of us have to schedule. If you work in a job like that, guys, where there are too many meetings, where you think, what is the point of this? You could have just literally sent a notification in Slack or something. Comment down below. Does it annoy you? Or do you quite like the meetings? I probably know the answer. Anyway, let's carry on. Around early November, HR sent out one of those all-staff emails with a bright red banner and urgent tone. It read something like this. Reminder, all unused PTO must be taken before December 31st. We will not be allowing rollovers this year. Please schedule your remaining days immediately or risk losing them. No exceptions, no flexibility, no consideration for project timelines. Now, I wasn't one to take a ton of time off during the year, mostly because every time I tried, something urgent would come up and I'd get guilted into postponing. So by November, I had 10 full days of paid time off just sitting there. And according to HR's big red warning, I had about 6 weeks to use them. Naturally, I did what any burnt out, underappreciated employee would do. I opened the calendar and I booked myself off from December 18th to December 31st. 2 full weeks right before the new year, smack in the middle of the most chaotic time in our project cycle. A week later, my manager, let's call him Rob, came to me in a mild panic. Hey, I saw your PTO request. I was hoping we could shift that a little. December's going to be a critical time for the project and we really need all hands on deck. Yeah, I get that, but HR sent that PTO deadline. If I don't use those days, I lose them. And I've already worked through enough vacations this year. He looked uncomfortable, but couldn't argue with the logic. I even forwarded him the HR email with the subject line, using my days as required, smiley face. He escalated it to HR, of course. And what was HR's reply? Well, we understand it may be inconvenient, but our PTO policy is final. Managers are responsible for planning around employee availability. That reply felt like Christmas came early. So I prepped my team as best I could, left detailed notes, and on December 18th, I logged out, stress-free. While they were scrambling to hit deadlines, dealing with last-minute client requests, and working late, I was sipping hot chocolate, watching Netflix, and actually enjoying my holiday season for once. When I came back in January, the project had been delivered, but barely. The team was exhausted, mistakes had been made, and the post-mortem meeting was basically 45 minutes of finger-pointing. But no one dared say a word to me. After all, I was just following HR's rules. Moral of the story, if a company insists you follow policy to the letter, don't feel bad when you do, even if it means watching the ship catch fire from your cozy vacation cabin. Again, with this story, I'm just left confused. Like, why do companies follow policy to the letter, as OP has just said, when it's just the wrong thing to do? I feel like this is probably a thing in bigger companies, and the bigger the company gets, the more this sort of thing probably happens, where people just start to lose their common sense, and they're sort of just jumping through loopholes because they have departments that aren't really in contact with each other, and there are specific rules throughout the company, etc., etc. And it's almost sort of like formulaic in a way in which these things happen, rather than somebody actually thinking to themselves, is this sensible? No, so let's not do it. Whereas when you have like a smaller company and people are more sort of aligned, to use a buzzword, and actually aligned as in like they're working close together and they're thinking, okay, well, we've got this big project at this moment. Let's not take holiday before it. Let's take it afterwards. And who cares about the fact that, yeah, maybe I'll take 40 days of holiday one year and then 20 the next, because actually it makes sense. This sort of stuff doesn't happen. And ultimately the client's happier. Strange though. I don't know why you would ever give a deadline of you have to take PTO before this period either. Like, this is often a period where things need to sort of get done before the end of the year. Then everyone takes their vacation from like the 23rd or even the 24th, later than that. Not like the 18th when you need these sort of things to be wrapped up before Christmas. Now for our penultimate malicious compliance. Smokers get more breaks? Well, hold my beer then. This goes back about 10 years ago. I worked for a large telecommunications company as a call center supervisor. Most of my peers were smokers, and with the way schedules were set up, there were large chunks of the day where only 2 or 3 of us were on at the same time. Our manager insisted one of us always be visible on the call center floor while also performing our regular duties, performance reviews, call monitoring, escalations, and weekly one-on-ones with our team. I also had the largest team with consistently over 20 reporting to me. All this to set the stage. I noticed that I seemed to be the only supervisor actually doing my time being visible, but every time I tried to carve out an hour or two for the rest of my job, they were always out smoking. It got to the point that I was working after hours just to stay caught up. I brought it up to my manager, thinking she would discreetly monitor it. She didn't. Instead, in a supervisor meeting, she announced to the entire group that she knows we have a busy job and sometimes it seems imbalanced, understatement, but that really the smokers were just taking their lunch hour in short smoke break intervals instead, so it all worked out in the end. Cool. The next day, I came to work with a pack of cigarettes in my bag ready to go. The second I saw one of my peers going out to smoke, I went out with them, timing the breaks, lit cigarette in my hand the entire time. It was a revolving door. They were going out to smoke almost more than once an hour, and usually out there for a solid 20 minutes each time. By the end of the first day doing this, I had timed one supervisor at nearly 2 hours worth of smoking breaks. I well exceeded my own lunch hour, so I started doing it every day. I packed small snacks to munch while outside instead of taking my entire lunch. One day, my manager saw me heading out and seemed surprised. I just shrugged and said, yeah, I've decided to start smoking. She couldn't say anything because if she timed mine, she would have to time theirs as well. That's so good. Imagine that, just being like, you know what, it's kind of getting a bit annoying that the smokers in our group, my colleague, are getting that much free time outside. I'm just going to start smoking myself. This went on for roughly a month before she announces to our management team that we would be required to start coordinating breaks among the team to make sure we had coverage. I gained not only the well-earned smugness from ruining things for all my lazy peers, but also a bit of relief from constantly floor walking. I mean, there we go. Ultimately, you have, in a way, I know it's a joke, but committed to a very unhealthy habit to get more time off. And you could argue that on the one hand, yeah, you're smoking now. I know you're not, but say you actually were like, you know what, I'm actually going to become a smoker, so I get more time off. You're smoking, but you're also working less. I don't know. Is it worth it? No, but genuinely, it is one of those things where non-smokers get punished for being healthier. How is that right? I don't really know. Now, this is controversial. Arguably, smoking breaks shouldn't be a thing at all. Now, that is controversial, and that seems pretty kind of like right wing, but I don't know, do you, if you're a gambling addict, get gambling breaks? Or if you're an alcoholic, get alcohol breaks? No, there's my point. Somebody said in the comments, I believe there are companies in Japan that give their non-smoking employees a couple of extra days off throughout the year to make up for the difference in time that smokers end up having from their smoke breaks. That is fair, and that's obviously what should happen. I'm not saying in a practical sense that smoking or smoke breaks shouldn't exist, but you shouldn't get punished for not taking those breaks, is the point. And ultimately, you are working more hours if you're not taking consistent smoke breaks. That's just a fact, and those people need to be compensated. And now for our final malicious compliance post of this episode. You want me to stop logging bugs? Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. This happened a couple of years ago when I was working as a QA analyst for a mid-sized software development company. I thought that some of you might enjoy it. I was part of a Scrum team working on a new feature for a large enterprise client. Our team was made up of the usual suspects: devs, a Scrum master, a product owner, and myself as the sole QA. Now, I'm a pretty thorough tester. I take pride in not just finding bugs, but documenting them clearly with steps to reproduce, screenshots, logs, you name it. Some devs loved me for it, others not so much. One dev in particular, Mike, really hated having bugs logged against his code. He had this passive-aggressive attitude where any issue I found was user error or not a bug. The guy had a serious ego problem and believed his code was flawless. We were getting close to a deadline and I was logging a lot of issues. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to warrant attention. Some were cosmetic, others were functional, but all were valid. Mike didn't like that I was slowing things down. During a sprint planning meeting, Mike went on a mini rant about how the QA was bogging the team down with unnecessary bugs and how we shouldn't waste time logging minor issues that don't block functionality. Surprisingly, the product owner, who was also feeling the deadline pressure, sided with him. The decision was made. From now on, only log critical/blocker issues. Everything else can be reported informally or ignored. I clarified. So, you want me to stop logging non-blocking bugs, even if they're reproducible? Yep, exactly. Let's focus on shipping. Okay, you got it, boss. For the next 2 sprints, I only logged blockers, like the app crashes or data corruption level stuff. Everything else, I kept to myself. No documentation, no Jira tickets, nada. The release went live and all heck broke loose. Users were finding buttons overlapping on mobile, broken tooltips, form validation failures, inconsistent date formats, slow load times on certain views. None of it was technically blocking, but it made the experience feel amateurish. Cue a very uncomfortable post-mortem with the client. The product owner asked why none of these issues were found during QA. I just smiled and said, well, they were found, but per your instruction, I didn't log them. Silence. Mike tried to chime in, but the damage was done. Upper management got wind of the fiasco and mandated that all issues, regardless of severity, must be logged going forward. Mike was moved to a different team shortly after. Not just because of this, but it didn't help. And I got an apology and a thank you from the product owner. Okay, so you were literally being told not to do your job. That is just like ridiculous. I'm sorry. If you're Mike, surely you just need to lose the ego and be like, you know what? Yeah, these bugs are important to me. I want to be proud of the code that I put out as well and not feel like, okay, I've put it out. Somebody has said to me that it's fine when actually in reality I've told them not to tell me things that are wrong with it. I don't know. It's the sort of person that Mike is, but I'm thinking like if I was in that position, yeah, I'm sure it is annoying if somebody's telling you that there's a bug here, there's a bug here, there's a bug here, but do you not want to hear about those bugs so that you can be proud of what you eventually do put out, knowing that it's error-free? Who wants to put out something that just doesn't work like this? I mean, this is just really embarrassing. You put out a product, there are very basic problems. Like if you have buttons overlapping on mobile, that just looks terrible. And that is an immediate for me, I'm not using that anymore. Simple as that. Do you really want to not know about that before you put that product out? I mean, that's just insane. The one thing I would say is, did you get that request to stop the logging in writing? Because you need to be able to, well, I don't know, your PO sort of, actually, no, I don't know. The product owner has said it's fine. But I'm just like, in the future, maybe something may have happened where Mike had gone, well, I never said that. Where are the bugs? you didn't find them. That's on you, you know, just to cover your back. But yeah, ultimately, absolutely fine. You did well. It's just like, again, I do sometimes feel very grateful for not having to work in a place like this where you're not even allowed to do your job properly because of some idiot that says, can you just not do it? That would just really annoy me. But yeah, there we go. That is going to do it for this one. An extended episode of Malicious Compliance. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below. Out of those 7 stories, which one do you sort of resonate with most? Was there one where you just thought, yes, I've been in that exact position pretty much? And if so, what happened? Maybe you're in a position like this last story right now where you want to do your job to the best of your abilities, but actually the people above you are saying, don't worry about it. Like, it's not worth it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Let me know in the comments down below. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.